Hello, this is Keith and welcome back. Today's tutorial is going to be on comparing how we can accomplish something using Microsoft Excel and how we could get the same answer using Python. As a data analyst, and in my experience, I use both Excel and Python together. So today we're going to be looking at the Excel function SUMIFS, and then we'll do the same thing using Python. So this is a data set I created using ChatGPT, and the question that we're going to answer today is what are the total sales for a category of clothing and a subcategory within the category uh, men. Okay, so we want to find the total sales for that. So my first step is I want to create a data validation list to give me all the unique categories, and then we'll create another data validation list to give us all the unique subcategories. So this will be dynamic. So whenever I select a category from this list and a subcategory, we're going to get the total sales out of this data set here. So let's first create the data validation list, and we go up to data in the ribbon, and then over here in the data tools group, select this and select data validation. And the shortcut key is using your Alt key, A, V as in Victor, V as in Victor. This is on a Microsoft, this is on a PC. So once we get this data validation dialog box up, we're going to select list, we're going to go to source, and then we're going to select our source. So I want to get all the unique categories. So I formatted this data set as a table. So once you hover over the column header, and if you click down, it selects all the data within there. So that's how I got that so quickly. And then press OK. So if I select this now, it gives me all the unique categories within this column. We're going to do the same now for subcategory. V is in Victor, V is in Victor. Okay, let's go over here and select list. Let's go down to the source, click this up arrow, and now we want to select the subcategory. So a different way to select it, select the first one, Control Shift down arrow, Control backspace, and it automatically selects that, and let's click OK. And I have freeze panes on here. So let's get rid of that. So now we got all the unique subcategories. Okay, so once I select clothing and once I select men out of this list, okay, now we want to build the SUMIFS function. So I press equal SUMIFS, tab into that. The sum range now refers to what are we trying to sum up within this data set here. So what we're trying to sum up is the total sales. Again, since this is a format as a table, I can easily select all the data within this column by hovering over the column, and you can see the black down arrow, and once you get that, just click and it selects the entire column. Now comma, now what's our criteria range? Well, first we want to look for the clothing category. So what we do is the criteria range is where we going to find clothing, and that will be in the category column. So comma, what is the criteria? The criteria is going to exist in this cell right here. That's one. Now comma, criteria range 2 is we're having a double criteria here, and we want the subcategory. So where are we going to find this value in this data set? And that's in our subcategory column. comma. Now, where's the criteria? The criteria exists in this cell here. I'm going to select it, and I'm going to close out the SUMIFS, press enter, and now I get a total value here of 120,502.43. Now, one quick way to verify this information is let's go anywhere in your data set. Well, first of all, this is a table, so I already have the filters buttons on, but to turn it on and off is Control Shift L. That turns it off, Control Shift L again, and it turns it back on. So let's first select out of this list, deselect, select all, and then we're going to select clothing. Click OK. Now we got all clothing categories within our data set. Now let's do the same thing for subcategory. Deselect that and select men. Okay, now we got all clothing and men rows selected. Now let's find the total sales. If I Control Shift down arrow, I selected everything in that filtered range, and if you come down here on the bottom, Excel has a number of different stats already calculated for us. Now the sum of this range here is, as you can see, it's 122,502.43, and that matches everything up here. So now let's undo the filters. I could do Control Shift L, and it brings back the entire data set. So now, right now, if I select anything else, of course it turns 0 because within the category furniture, it doesn't have a subcategory of men. So let's select something else. Furniture, let's say tables. So there. Now all the information here now for everything that has a category of furniture and a subcategory of tables, it calculates the total sales for us. So now let's go back to clothing and men. Okay. And now let's find the same answer within Python. So let's go over here. I'm in Jupyter Notebook's IDE environment, and that's what I use. So our first step is we need to load the libraries that Python needs in order to do the following syntax that we're going to build together. So I'm going to I'm going to add in the libraries that I need. And it's going to be, we're going to import the pandas libraries. Now, I'm in Jupyter Notebooks. To add a new cell, I just press B and then type in my information. Import pandas as PD. PD just stands for pandas, and it's an alias that we'll use later on in the code. So instead of us typing out pandas all the time, we just type in PD. So I'm going to press Control Enter. That executes this active cell here within there. And now let's create a file path. So meaning that, well, we want to read in an Excel file, the same file that we used here. That's what I want to do. So let's go over here to this cell here. Let's add a new cell below that. And now let's type in what we need here. I'm just going to create a variable name. You could call this anything that you want, equal to data.xlsx quote. Okay, that's the name of my Excel file, and I don't have to put in any backslashes or anything else because right now this script, this Python script, exists in the same directory where this data file lists. Okay, I'm going to press Control Enter to execute that cell. Now our next line that we need to do is we need to read this Excel file into a data frame, a pandas data frame. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's press B to enter a new cell. And now let's type in DF stands for data frame. You could call it anything that you want, this variable. And we're going to type in PD dot read underscore XL. And then we're going to pass it in this file path. So basically this variable. So file path. And then I'll explain this in a second, but by default, if I just don't pass in any other parameters, Excel is going to read in the first sheet of the Excel file and start in cell A1. But I'll show you in a second, my file does not start in cell A1. It does start in the first sheet though. So we're going to pass in a variable called skip rows equals 6. And then let's press enter and type in DF. DF is just so it displays the result of the file. You'll see that in a second. Control enter, and it's executing this. So what it did was it read in my data set from Excel and it displays it. So now let's go back to Excel and I'll show you what the skip rows is. So let's go back to Excel. As you can see, my actual data does not start in cell A1. It starts down below. And skip rows mean I'm telling Python when it reads in this sheet to skip 6 rows before it gets to the actual data set. So if I go down, this is row 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So it skips 6 rows and then it goes down to the next row and it knows from that point that it reads in my data set. So let's go back to Python. So that's what this did here. So our next step is we want to be able to filter it now. In Excel, we're calling, let's go back to Excel. Let's go over here. In this formula, basically what SUMIFS is doing, we're passing in, well, what we want to try to sum. And then this is the filtering, this criteria, the next parameters. We're filtering on 2 different conditions. And that's what we're going to be doing in Python. So let's go down here. Let's get to a new cell. Type in B. Oh, let's go down here. Okay, what we want to do is we want to filter it. So let's go over here and let's type in what we need to do here. We're going to create a variable name called filtered data frame. Again, this is, you don't have to call it this. This is just what I did. And I'm going to explain what I'm doing here first. So I'm going to type in DF. I'm going to pass in basically conditions. So I'm going to type in that and then data frame. Okay. And then I'm going to pass in a list. And then I'm category field, which is the category column I want. Close out that with that. And I'll explain this in a second. Give me a second. Let's type this all out here. Equal to okay, ampersand, and then we're going to do the same thing with another condition, data frame. We're going to access the subcategory column in our data frame. Close that out, and it's equal to men. Okay, so let's do this first. Let's control enter. Okay, I didn't have a closing parens. Okay, give me a second. This is what I did here. I typed in a curly brace. Just a second. Men, let's see that, and then okay, it executed it fine. It tells me it gave me a number here, so it executed fine. But let's step back and let's do this step by step to see what it's actually doing. Okay, I'm going to comment this field out, and what I'm going to do is we're going to go from the inside out. Basically what this code is doing, it's accessing the category column by, it says DF, and then these square brackets around the column header that means you're accessing the category column, and it's checking to see if it's equal to clothing. And it's doing the same thing over here. It's accessing the subcategory column and checking to see if it's equal to men. So let's do this step by step. Let's first dissect this to see what it returns. I'm going to do this. Okay, let's press Control Enter and see what it's doing. It's going row by row in the data frame, and it's determining on this condition, is the first row, does it have a category of clothing? And if it does, it will return true. If it doesn't, it returns false. So basically what this is a Boolean series that gets returned. Okay, now that's the first condition, so it saves that in the memory. Now let's do the same thing over here for this guy. Let's go over here, Control V, Control Enter. Again, it goes to the data frame row by row, and it determines by accessing the subcategory column and seeing if it has a value of men. If it does, it's true, or it returns false. Okay, again, this is a Boolean series. So once it does that for this condition and it does that for this condition, it creates a single Boolean series. So let's copy both of them here. Let's go over here. Okay. I need to, let's see, do this. And then I need to put another bracket here. Okay. Control Enter. And what it does by taking those two individual Boolean series, okay, it compares both of them together. If both of them in the first row are false and false, it will return a false. If it returns a false and a true, or vice versa, a true and a false, it's going to return a false here, okay? And it does that row by row in the data frame. And it brings back one Boolean series together. So now what this does, the data frame here itself, once it gets to this outer condition, it does the actual filtering. So it passes in this single Boolean series and it checks it row by row. And if the first row is false, it doesn't return that row. If it's true, it returns the row. So now let's see. Let's do this again. Let's do that and Control Enter. Okay, so now this is the results of this line of code right here. It brings back okay, all rows with category and all rows with men, both together, because this ampersand says it's an and. We're gonna we want an and condition. So if we scroll down and it returns all these different rows here with that condition. So now we're at a point, once we have that, we're at a point that we want to sum. Let's go back here. We want, in this data frame, this filtered data frame, now we want to go back to this filtered data frame, go to the total sales column and add up all the sales in that data frame. So let's go over here. Now let's type in the code necessary to get the sum of that data frame. So now we're going to create a new variable. And we're going to access the filtered data frame. And then we want to, in this filtered data frame, we want to access this column called total sales. So this is why we're using square brackets. It's telling Python that we want to access a column named total sales. Okay, let's close it out. And now we want to perform the sum function on this. Okay, now let's press enter. Okay, before we execute the cell, I want to format the result of the value that gets returned into this variable here called total quantity. Okay, so let's execute this cell here. Okay, it executed fine. And now let's go down here and let's display the results. And I'll explain the syntax to this. To have a new cell. Now I'm creating a new variable called formatted total is equal to, now I'm using the F string. F stands for formatted string, so I want to format a string. So I'm going to use a $sign because I'm in the US. This is a currency symbol for that. And now I'm using curly braces, total underscore quantity, colon, and I'll explain this in a second, comma, dot, 2F, and that, press, okay, now enter. I'm using the print statement now. Okay, now I'll explain the syntax in a second. So as you can see, it returned 120,502.43. Let's compare that over here. So you could see that it matches it exactly. Now let's go back to Python and I'll explain this syntax. What this F stands for, again, it stands for F string. Now I'm passing it in double quotes some syntax. So basically, I'm telling Python, whatever is in between the two double quotes, I want to format the string a certain way. So first of all, I'm going to put a $sign because that's my currency symbol. These curly braces over here signifies a placeholder. And what a placeholder is, when Python executes this script, it's going to look at this, the values within the curly braces. It's going to look at the value of the total quantity variable and return the what's inside that total quantity variable. So it basically it evaluates what's inside there. The value itself, not the name of the variable, but the value that it holds. So that's what that is. And then the colon here signifies that you're introducing a format specification for this variable. And the comma stands for it stands for thousands separator. So when you get into the thousands in a number, it puts in a comma. And and the dot two stands for it restricts it to 2 decimal places. So basically that's what that means. Okay, so let's go back to Excel. Hopefully this tutorial was very useful for you today, and hope you learned how you could use a function in Excel and get the same result in Python. It's very important that you understand how to do this as a data analyst. And these are two of many different platforms that I use in my career. Thanks again for stopping by. You have a great day. Remember to subscribe to my channel. And also, please like and share this video, because I know that other people out there want to learn this information, because this is what they do for a living. Again, thank you for stopping by. You have a great day, and I'll catch you on the next video. Bye now.